It is a silent, midnight battle that compromises the evening peace of millions of ordinary, hard-working adults every single night. You have finished a grueling day of physical or emotional labor. You are lying in bed, completely exhausted, with your alarm set for an early morning shift. Your logical mind knows with absolute certainty that you need to close your eyes and rest your body. Yet, your hand remains completely locked around your smartphone, your eyes are pinned to the glowing screen, and your thumb executes an automated frictionless micro-movement to refresh a feed or swipe past another short video. You look at the clock, realize hours have vanished into a blur of useless abstract text, yet a cold sensation of restless urgency keeps you fully frozen in place, unable to put the device down. Society looks at this nocturnal paralysis and labels it as a simple lack of self-control, poor discipline, or an addictive personality. They tell you to just buy a lockbox for your phone. But this exhausting late-night stagnation has nothing to do with your willpower. You are caught inside a highly engineered chemical trap that weaponizes your brain's primary survival architecture against your own tissues. To see the mechanical gears behind this midnight scroll, we must isolate the precise biological networks that handle reward anticipation inside your skull. This system is heavily anchored within the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, specifically the nucleus accumbens, which serves as the primary pleasure and drive engine of the mind. Under ancestral conditions, the brain released dopamine slowly to reinforce stable, predictable behaviors, like foraging for food or building shelter, allowing your physiology to remain in a state of calm homeostatic balance. However, modern smartphone interfaces are deliberately engineered to operate like a predatory digital slot machine. When you pull down to refresh a page or swipe through text, the algorithm does not give you an unvarying stream of high-value data. Instead, it deploys an intermittent reinforcement schedule. You scroll past 3 uninteresting updates, followed suddenly by a highly stimulating video, a funny comment, or a social notification. This sudden, unpredictable contrast fires a massive, unearned spike of dopamine directly into your synapses, forcing your conscious awareness to lock onto the device with an intensity that real-world rewards can never replicate. The relentless compulsion to swipe just one more time is driven by a profound mathematical calculation known as a dopamine prediction error. Your brain operates as a predictive biological machine, continuously running algorithms to calculate the resource return on your attention. When your thumb hovers over the screen, your prefrontal cortex pre-allocates an internal expectation of stimulation. If the next piece of content is boring, your dopamine levels drop below their homeostatic baseline, triggering a state of temporary internal emptiness and subtle neurological frustration. To correct this painful chemical deficit, your brainstem takes full control of your cognitive focus. It forces your thumb to swipe again, operating under the survival assumption that the very next interaction will deliver the ultimate chemical payout to restore your baseline. You are caught in a rigged loop where the brain uses the pain of a low dopamine drop to force you to chase the next mirage, turning a routine evening into an active neurochemical rescue mission that drains your cells of their energy. The true structural lock of screen obsession lives inside a profound communication error running up the data cables of your vagus nerve. Over 80% of the fibers within this major pathway carry interoceptive telemetry up from your internal organs to your brain, rather than down. When your reward circuit enters a state of rapid dopamine fluctuations from continuous scrolling, it alters your autonomic nervous system, causing your heart rate variability to drop and your breathing to become shallow. The upward-bound fibers of the vagus nerve carry this data straight to your conflict monitoring centers within a blistering 12-millisecond window. This creates a severe internal contradiction. Your conscious mind looks at your safe bedroom and knows you are completely secure. But your internal threat networks are receiving physical telemetry that says Your biology is in a state of chaotic physiological arousal and unrest, because your survival infrastructure always prioritizes visceral physical panic over abstract logic. Your mind warps its perspective to match the chemistry, converting an automated digital scroll into an absolute current survival emergency. The immediate result of this visceral panic loop is a highly destructive behavioral defense mechanism known as the fallacy of the essential update. Because your brain hates mystery and cannot stand experiencing intense internal restlessness without a clear explanation, it forces your analytical networks to construct a desperate narrative to justify the phone-checking panic. Your mind genuinely convinces you that you must stay connected to the screen to protect yourself from a catastrophic social or professional exclusion. You form the rigid core belief that missing a single notification, a breaking local news item, or a message from your social circle represents an immediate to your standing. You tell yourself, "I just need to stay informed so I'm not left outside the loop." This fiction provides instant temporary explanation to your confused logical centers. The checking behavior becomes your ultimate psychological shield. You're trapped in an addiction-like state where your brain uses endless scrolling as a temporary safety valve, completely unaware that it is actively using your intelligence to burn the chemical dependency deeper into your long-term neural pathways. To fully map out this loop, we must evaluate how this chemical dependency completely hijacks your brain's selective attention filters via the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system acts as the master gatekeeper for your consciousness, deciding which environmental details enter your active awareness and which are discarded as noise. When your system is hypersensitized to digital micro-rewards, your reticular activating system takes its filtering instructions directly from your internal withdrawal state. It actively optimizes your sight and hearing to track only the high-velocity, hyper-compressed signals of the screen. When you look at your quiet physical room or attempt to look at a book, your reticular activating system categorizes these low-intensity real-world inputs as useless background noise, completely filtering them out to save scarce processing energy. Conversely, the minor chime or flash of a notification is instantly amplified into a high-priority alarm that shatters your focus. You are locked inside an insulated cognitive filter where your brain actively deletes the texture of real life, ensuring that the screen remains the only environment where your mind feels chemically alive. While your selective filters are prioritizing the screen, your medial prefrontal cortex is running an automated status calculation based on social comparison theory that completely paralyzes your current agency. Your brain naturally calculates your competence and belonging by running continuous simulations of your relative position within your community networks. However, when you look at a digital feed, this comparison engine operates on a highly asymmetric data set. You experience your own modern reality from the inside out, meaning you possess absolute access to your internal processing friction, your daily morning anxieties, and the messy compromises of your life. In contrast, you experience the virtual presentation of others entirely from the outside in, staring at highly curated, hypersaturated digital imagery of their finest moments and milestones. Your analytical brain automatically compares your raw, chaotic, unedited internal blooper reel with the golden highlight reel of their fabricated digital life, concluding that you are uniquely trailing within the human hierarchy, transforming a simple technological layout into a deep personal feeling of psychological shame. To understand why the human brain reacts to digital updates with such an intense, agonizing wave of physical urgency, we must abandon modern technological contexts and look at the brutal resource realities of deep human history. Our nervous system did not evolve to manage infinite text feeds or synthetic social profiles. If we look back at the ancestral blueprint of nomadic trekking groups, survival during periods of environmental volatility depended on an intense capacity for environmental data collection. When water was scarce or predators were active, Finding a single micro-clue, like a fresh footprint in the mud or a snapped twig, was a high-stakes calculation that determined whether the group survived or died. A primitive human who possessed a highly relaxed brain that ignored minor environmental changes without experiencing intense internal curiosity would lose the track, leading to rapid evolutionary elimination. Survival fiercely favored the sentinels, whose brains developed a hyper-reactive internal alarm for information seeking. The notification panic you feel today is the ancient tracking software of a sentinel who knows that missing a track means death, forcing your flesh to swipe the screen to guarantee survival. The persistent feeling of life's flatness outside the phone screen is heavily driven by an artificial neurochemical ceiling created by the clinical structure of synaptic receptor downregulation. When you bombard your synapses with continuous unearned microdoses of digital dopamine for hours every day, your postsynaptic neurons face a high risk of chemical overstimulation and excitotoxic damage. To protect the delicate structural integrity of your neural pathways from this intense bombardment, your brain cells execute an automated defensive retreat. They actively withdraw their dopamine receptors, burying them deep within the cell membrane to lower their sensitivity to the digital flood. This creates a severe operational ceiling. Your entire reward system goes numb. When you finally put your phone away and step into the physical world, the quiet, low-intensity rewards of real life, such as the texture of food, the sound of the wind, or a casual conversation, fail to generate enough dopamine to cross your newly elevated threshold. The world doesn't feel boring because it lacks value. It feels flat because your screen habits have literally dismantled the physical receptors required to experience your life. The long-term danger of continuously allowing this chemical trap to dictate your evening routine is a severe accumulation of cellular strain across your advanced networks. When your brain forces you to live with an elevated stress hormone baseline, despite a perfectly peaceful external reality, your HPA axis maintains a low-grade, non-stop release of stress chemicals that inflicts severe oxidative stress upon your neurons. This chronic overactivation forces your brain's resident immune networks to shift into a hyperinflammatory state, releasing a constant stream of pro-inflammatory cytokines directly into your cerebrospinal fluid. This chronic neuroinflammation blocks your natural serotonin synthesis pathways, leading to structural cellular clock desynchronization and an accelerated degradation of your brain's long-term plasticity inside the frontal lobes. The energy required to fight this internal inflammatory surge completely exhausts your nervous system's buffering capacity, dropping your mind into a permanent state of gray fatigue and clinical burnout, proving that the digital escape eventually extracts the ultimate long-term tax, the total destruction of your vitality. When we systematically look at this entire temporal process through a cold, clinical lens, we can run an objective synaptic translation on our chest and completely strip the phone-checking panic of its psychological power. The next time you sit in your bedroom and feel a sudden suffocating wave of restless urgency and physical sickness settle into your stomach because you tried to put your phone away, you must instantly execute a neural diagnostic sweep of your flesh. The racing heart, the tight throat, and the internal voice telling you that you are missing out on an essential life update are not profound emotional truths. They are not an indication that your social circle is in danger, that your life is a failure, or that your capacity for focus has permanently died. They are simply the physical, predictable telemetry of an overtaxed nucleus accumbens and a chronologically blind limbic core running an ancient ancestral tracking protocol inside an evolutionary brainstem that has mistaken a standard digital notification for a life-saving resource track. The terrifying thoughts of isolation your mind manufactures during this window are completely empty, written by an energy-starved brain. Dismantling the weight of this dopamine hijack requires a deliberate realignment of your perspective around the 12-millisecond logic gap. You cannot prevent your primitive alarm networks from panicking. When a sudden drop in digital stimulation hits your system, your reward circuits are structurally hardwired to treat a loss of environmental predictability as an immediate threat to your survival readiness. Your objective is not to wait for the chemical withdrawal to magically vanish before you put your phone away, but to completely change your cognitive relationship to the adrenaline. When the wave of screen anxiety compromises your evening, expect the internal delay. Understand that the frantic mental loops are merely the automated signaling of an energy-conserving brainstem that has placed your awareness into a temporary protective quarantine to allow your synapses to rebuild their receptor density. Step out of the manual simulation, accept the unspent cortisol without validating the thoughts, and let your body sit in the physical quiet, giving your cells the time they need to naturally restore their baseline sensitivity and pull your consciousness back into true, unpolluted authority.